Good evening and welcome to Head to Toe with Dr. T. Don't forget to watch us Mpoma Kapa TV, your favorite channel. Ungasibukela na ku Free Vision app wherever you are. Nobu semotweni, nobu selwandle, nobu phi na. Awu need a TV, unida nje phone yakho and then just get in. And we're talking today mental health as it applies to adolescence, the stage, and also how this thing will affect teenagers zethu. There are so many things that affect abantu abakule category population through the eyes and ears of our specialist psychiatrist, Dr. Machaya. Dr. Machaya, let me thank you for gracefully coming through to our show.
But Debs and Koska call it's good to be back here. I've just realized that until the Oakland University, I was an adolescent, and at the time, Nandi wasn't.
Sure.
Yeah, I was 16 when I was doing my first year. I turned 17 for first year.
Ah.
Yeah, and
So
I
you passed your matric when you were
at 21. So if you can go actually there's so many things that I thought I understood. And I don't need people and in the right. But I realized okay, I made mistakes that I had to forgive myself for now. That ends up because I've got it figured out because in say university.
Sure.
Kandi, it's not that simple.
Ingqondo was not that mature. There are a number of things in fact, there are a number of physical changes that happen during adolescence.
Yes.
That may actually surprise a lot of other kids, especially depending on culture. Was this child prepared? And so on. Mentally, what impact does this have? The biological changes that they go through, development of pubic hair, the changes with private parts, the changes in voice, muscles, hips, and everything.
You see, Putebza, adolescent. It's the idea that umdana is transitioning to adulthood is exciting, but it's stressing at the same time to both the child and the parent.
Yes,
because the child will feel that something is off. There's this person who is emerging that I'm not familiar with. And then the parent will also feel that the child is becoming distant and evolving to be a new person in front of you. Exactly, and often they lose, not often, but it happens quite a lot, that they lose each other at that moment, because instead of talking about what could be happening or engaging with the child as to what to expect. Omnye umntana umbone enemy umzali and umzali ubona umntana nechiki. So it's the physical changes like you were mentioning. There's a lot of emotional, psychological, behavioral changes that happen, a lot of social challenges. If you look at the emotion or maybe the psychological part of it, this is the time Butebza that umdana is progressing from, if bekuthiwa ile computer yakho ngesithi uya progressa from being from a stage a simple computer that has been programmed by everything bifakiwe phaya. Now isn't becoming, it's complex. The computer is becoming complex as new software and things that are loaded, and so kukona a sense of self that is developing. A sense of self that is developing. Kukona values, beliefs as well, impacted by a lot of things. And if we're back to what you were saying, if kange kubeko conversation about those physical changes, umdana is going to have to figure out lendo. There's going to be a sense of shame about it because uzocinga ukuthi zenzeka kuye, and uzawuphetha mhlambi esiya kwindawo ezirongo nakubantu abarongo to get answers. You know, uzawuzenzela ezakhe interpretation yakhe. So it's important that we engage about these things, we talk about these things, so that children, you know, do know what to expect and what it means. You know, because one of the problems that we have is that sexual maturity happens first, you know, before the intellectual and emotional maturity. And that is a big challenge.
Yeah.
Because if a state now, they will interpret the sexual maturity, you know, as cognitive maturity. Exactly. And that because there's this that is maturing, you know, these sexual characteristics that are maturing, they mean that I should do this and that, you know, and they and to whatever extent in doing that. Yeah, we want to. We need to understand that cognitively, this upper part of the brain, your frontal cortex, it develops later. It gets fully developed at your mid-20s, 25.
Sure.
And this is the part that is responsible for mood regulation.
Sure.
This is why kukho as mood swings sikhalaza ngazo
Yes, umntana unechiki, unemood, uyandichika.
Exactly. And this is the part that is responsible for impulse control. Yabo uve kusithiwa uske enze.
Okay.
This is why they are very likely to engage in risky behaviors, you know, risky behaviors xa besingakhange sithethe nabo on how to regulate zonke ezi zinto ezi. This is a part yet decision making, abstract thinking and all of that.
Maybe
this is,
that's why we're getting teenage pregnancy.
Exactly. Le nto bendiyitsho ndithi,
Yeah, you said sexually they are mature, but cognitively they are still very, very much immature, but they think they are clever.
Exactly. So ile nto bendiyithetha ndisithi there needs to be conversations ezakwenza uba mabayazi into yokubana I still need to ask about these things. You know, and rely on how I feel, because I might not know the consequences. Cognitively, my decision making, my judgment cannot really be trusted.
And some of those things may actually haunt you for the rest of your life.
Exactly.
And that's the problem. When you become an adult, we'll always look back at these things.
Yeah.
And we're going to take a short break, but we must look into some of them tend to withdraw and stay in rooms and everything, all those things.
Yeah.
Mentally, what should we take out of this as parents, and how should we navigate this space? Stick with us. We're talking mental health and adolescence, the stage where people become small adults. And Dr. Machaya, the psychiatrist, will be ingqondo ayikavuthwa but umzimba ukhangeleka usebuntwini, and then they may actually do things led by the body. Behind. Stick with us. We'll be back shortly. Welcome back to Head to Toe with Dr. Tebelele, Mpuma TV. Don't forget to follow us on all social media, Mpuma TV, on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and all over. Then with Dr. Tebelele's Appeal Communications, Facebook, TikTok, and all over. We are live also on Free Vision app, wherever you are, as well as on DSTV channel. Thank you so much. We have got our lovely guest, Dr. Machaya, who is a specialist psychiatrist. We're looking in the brains and the body of adolescents, that is teenagers. What goes through their minds? What goes through their bodies? Are the minds ready for what is happening in their bodies? What kind of behavior should we watch for? And how to regulate and actually manage this turmoil all over in terms of shaping the life and the future life of this little kid. Dr. Machaya.
Yes, Budom.
Talk to me about this social withdrawal.
Sure.
These kids tend to close themselves in the rooms. What does that do to their mental health? Is it something we should actually enjoy and watch, or is it something we should reprimand?
I think it starts from what I said earlier, that there's a vast of changes and development that is happening in the brain. Remember that it is not just the frontal cortex that I spoke about, but there's a lot of evidence about the increase in the growth of the brain cells, the neurons, the neuronal connectivity that is increasing, etc. So that means ukuthi umntana is going to move from understanding and believing things from what he or she is told. It's not about what I'm told and about what I hear, but uqalisa ngoku to consider a lot of possibilities, you know, a lot of questions. And part of that is interacting with ilizwe lakhe, because ilizwe lakhe liye likhula than to be just limited to home and the neighbors and whatever. Liye likhula ngoku. So a stage where build relationships are important out there. And that tends to come with ukuba close okanye uba, yes, to spend more time with the peers than the parents.
Sure. and that's funny kakhulu.
Iyaxabanisa kakhulu loo nto leyo.
Umntana unento ebhekeleyo ukuthi ngoku uxabise istrato ngaphezu kwethu yonke laa nto.
Yeah.
So mental asikho right nathi.
I think it is how to manage this whole thing, you understand, and understanding yayo yonke laa nto leyana, yabo. So as esivalele phayana, I would say buti umntana akazuvela avuka amcaphukele umzali wakhe. I think singabazali, we need to have that at the back of our minds, that akanawuze for no reason asikavuke andixeba kandifuni. You understand? So how I respond to that social withdrawal, it should still be coming from a point of ukuthi uyandinga ndiyamdinga siyadingana, and actually undinida more because there's a conflict ekuye trying to figure out a lot of things. There are people that are exposing to things that mhlawumbe you do not know. You understand? And there's a lot of conflict that is coming from defining self, you know, trying to position and picture a role in the society. So there's quite a lot of things. So if ndiyafika uzivalele, instead of ndimeke laa mnyango ndizixelele into yokubana yabona kapha endlini yam akukho mntu uzawuthini, a different approach. You know, a different approach. Check on the child, not sumhlala apha mnikeze as a space to find self, to individuate, you know. But from time to time, you know, uye kuye, and sometimes you just sit. You know, you'll be surprised. Surprised xa sebezi early adults xa bezawube bekhumbula how you made them feel.
Yes.
Than into yokubana waye wathini. You know, you just be there, you know, sometimes, or just whatever, uphinde umshiye. Okanye you actually ask, can I say something? Okanye you just say, would you want to talk about something? You know, just reassure whatever and leave. Unga push, especially if it comes and goes. It's not sustained over a longer period, you know. So I think that is important. And also the child, nabantwana sibafundise ukuthi in whatever way that umzali uza ngayo akayo enemy. Siyadingana, you understand? Sizamuncedana figuring this thing out. And ungumzali, with everything that is changing in the brain, the hormonal changes and whatever, he or she is never going to be the child that you have had for the first, 10 years. That is another reality that abazali bastruggle because bafuna ahlale eqhubeke engulwane.
Yeah, just you're reminding me of that. I once had a situation when the issue of sexuality. Parents always assume that a child who has got a penis will always be a boy, and then I expect a wife, and then a child who's got a VV will always be a girl, and I expect a husband and whatever. Then these kids actually now sexuality starts defining itself. That is sexual orientation comes up, and there's issue of lesbians, there's issue of gays, transsexual, and so some kids even hate having breasts. Some kids begin to hate even having menstruation and so on. And we deal with these things, and parents bayagoa. How should we handle this, and how are kids supposed to deal with this situation to prevent issues of overdose, drug
Yeah,
abuse, and so
yeah.
some of them end up
Yeah.
abusing drugs and so on, and also touch on the issue of social media,
Yeah.
because they've got their own crowds and populations.
Yeah. There's a lot of what we see and deal with during adolescent stage that is a continuation of, of the childhood. Hence, you'll hear therapists, irrespective of age, they will take you back to childhood.
Sure.
So that foundation, the relationship, the quality of the relationship, it matters.
Sure.
How much this child has learned to be safe, around you, to trust your emotions, with emotions, your reliability, being vulnerable. And when are you able to be vulnerable, because akazuba vulnerable engakwazi wena vulnerable. Akazuthetha nge-emotions ungazange wena wathetha nge-emotions.
Okay.
So umntana has to be familiar with being vulnerable, around you, and you being vulnerable.
Sure.
So that's the first thing. And also ke ngoku laa nto besiyithetha yokuthi let us prepare them ukuthi these are the things that will happen as part of the developing sexual characteristics. Kuzaba khona questions into yokubana what does this mean? Where does this place me in terms of the society, the roles? And it is important to know that akunyanzelekanga that at that age of 13 that abe nezi answers.
Sure.
And akunyanzelekanga into yokubana it's okay asihambi ngepace efanayo. It's
even
okay
going
that
down.
abanye baqalise, badate bathini, and when you still behind, it is okay, it is still normal. But andizuyazi loo nto if awuzange ube ne-conversation
Sure.
nam. So ayithi because I feel whatever kind of what is it, attracted to whatever, I tell you, let me go and explore that as ngalo mzuzu. You understand? There are people that will say, it's a controversial issue, I know. There are people that will say, at some point I was confused. But later on I decided to go this way or go either way.
Yes.
That's not the main point of our discussion. But either way azawuhamba ngayo makayazi uba angathetha kunye nawe, akukho nto isisimanga ekubeni nguye. But get close to the parent and let the parent help you figure out who you are. And help you ukwazi uzibona ukuthi ndifuna ukuya kuba zintoni that truly define me, because definition yakho, identity yakho is never going to be limited to who you sleep with. You are, there's a lot of other things that kufuneka abe in touch with.
Let's
will
hold
match
you
up
there.
identity.
Let's hold you there, Dr. Machaya. We'll be back shortly. It's very interesting. We're talking mental health in adolescence. Lot of things ezinokwenza umzali agowe, plus ezinokwenza nale teenager ayigowe, but this is opening our minds to everything around this. Thank you so much. Welcome back. We're talking to Dr. Machaya, our specialist psychiatrist, who's talking mental health in adolescence, the changes, the impact of a number of things. These things may actually mirror even in adulthood. That is why psychologists and psychiatrists always dig into this kind of history when we're an adult. Mhlawumbe izinto azihambi kakuhle okanye kukho iziva ezimane nezivubeko ezimane zivela. Gqirha,
Yes,
ufuna siqaqanise sileke into
Yes.
basizikavarishe zonke izinto.
Yes.
Impact of social media on
Sure.
adolescents,
Sure.
mental health.
Sure. Doc, social media, there's good, there's bad about social media. There's no straight answer there. It's difficult in the sense yokuthi part of wanting olomntana to individuate kufuneka into yokubana ndingasuke ngoku ndivele ndingene kule fowuni kuba khona ezo zinto ezinjalo that sibe ne-boundaries ezithile ngale fowuni and what
Yeah.
not. It becomes difficult unless you are concerned about certain ethical or moral issues or whatever. But truth is that if ulomntana is being followed by 500,000 people, ulomntana is exposed to 500 brains, 500 homes, 500 ideas, and I don't know about interactor nabangapi. So that could be a lot. We need to be mindful of that. So Mdana can be exposed to cyberbullying that can lead to, severe mental illnesses, depression, or anxiety. Mdana could be exposed, so I said cyberbullying, and also the content, zikhona izinto that, like we said, that cognitively akakabikho ready to be exposed kuzo, but because of the sexual maturity that has not been discussed apha ekhaya, xa exposure kula content, it's going to excite yena. So kukhona loo nto leyo, and also comparison. Social media is exposure to this
there are a lot of beautiful
perfection,
things and
exactly, and also seeing amanye amakhaya, abanye abantwana, Christmas, indoni bahleli etafleni, here is everybody, and I never experienced this ekhaya, so that on its own can lead to depression. And also enye into endiye ndiyithethe ke kancokola nabantwana into yoba interacting with your followers or whoever in social media can never replace this. Yes. There's a lot of development of social skills that needs, this. It needs us to look at each other. It needs us to understand social cues. It needs us to use gestures. It needs us to you understand that there's a lot. There's a lot that so that cannot be replaced.
One other thing that worries me: a lot of kids at this stage is when they start asking about who their father is.
Yes.
Maybe they discover that this is not their actual biological mother, the person who brought them up, and so on. That creates a lot of identity crisis and so on. Maybe there's a father who's asking for paternity tests and so on. That creates a lot of what impact or how should we deal with these things as these small adults mentally?
In this process of figuring out who I am, what defines me, and so it becomes important ukuthi ndizalwa ngubani. So xa umntana ebuza about utata, ayithetha ukuthi you have failed, ayithetha ukuthi you are not enough, because umzali uvele alwele yena into yokubana it's not about that. This child is grateful, but it's a normal part of emotional and psychological development yakhe to wish to have that relationship and to understand what are the dynamics there. So it's not about you're not enough. Ndicela nje bayigeta abazali. Okunye doc okuvezayo ilento yokuthi eza secrets zethu zasemakhaya sifuneka ngoku ke sitshintshe indlela yokucinga, asisalenzi ixesha with the like exposure ku social media.
Abazali bethu maybe they managed in their own era.
Exactly, and uye uve umntana ngoku efika esithi mna di-inboxwe ngumuntu ose King Williamstown. Wathi ke nake ndingubrother wakhe, something like that. Yes, so while nicinga uba apha ekhaya nizixela uba nawufanayo, asiyazi kwela khaya into yokubana kuncokolwa ntoni na. So I think we need to move from laa nto yokubana asisoze sizithethe. It is umntana has got every right to know the truth, but build the relationship, build the ixesha aluzide libe perfect and ideal. You are going to do it because kufuneka yenzekile. Also mabazazi
when we're talking about perfect time, there's an issue of disclosure. Abantwana abazalwa be-HIV positive.
Oh yes.
Bakhula besitya i-treatment, mhlawumbi uqhathi umntana ukuthi hayi treatment yokuxhuzula le, treatment ye-stress, and then they get angry to know the truth into about you were born with HIV and so on. And also those with diabetes, they start revolting against the treatment. Abe engazoyitshintsha i-diagnosis and so on. Then afuna ulwa ne-treatment, hayi I'll default i-treatment, ayeke nezonality athini.
Look, Doc, I've started seeing quite a lot of cases of undisclosed status. Umntana bezazi sitya treatment of
something else.
And inyaniso into yokubana if we are saying that silindelele frontal cortex abe na 25 kwawusakudala, sizawuba ne lot of behavioral problems ezizawuvela. So ixesha might not be perfect, and umntana akafani anawuthi xa ena 15 because lo wakho xa ena 15 akafani nalo xa ena 15. at some point you are going to need to have that uncomfortable conversation. Akho breakthrough yenzekayo singakhange sibe uncomfortable.
Awesome.
We need to have it and be prepared to be vulnerable and the questions that ezizawuvela kulondo. Abanye kuyenzeka ukuthi umama uzawubuza ngumama, if uxelwa ngutata uzawubuza nangumama. You know, but umama sithine sakhe status. And sometimes onye umzali positive, onye umzali negative. Ngicela siyazi inyaniso into kubana uzayibuza umntwana lonto.
So
yes, prepare yourself first. You know, understand and accept, you know, your situation, ibali elakho wena qala, because you cannot expect the child to understand something that you are in conflict with yourself. You know, so
it also deals with us.
Yes, Kakol, yes.
Then before we run out of time, can you touch on the issue of substance abuse? Can you also touch on the issue of teenage suicide?
Sure. Sinengxaki kakhulu if we are going to be talking about suicide being one of the top 3 leading causes of death between 15 and 25. Then we've got a problem. Sithetha ukuthi lento of ukuthi oyokufela wedwa, like dying in silence, lento yongafumani umuntu okwazi ukumtrusta ngenhliziyo yakho, it starts back there. Ayiqali xa sibadala. You get what I'm saying? This is why it's important ukuthi these helplines, you know, 12-free numbers ezikhoyo for depression, for anxiety, zibe out there, abantwana bazazi, because for whatever reason, umntana might not be comfortable to talk to me, but makayazi into kuba ukhona umuntu engamaziyo that ndingayiqala pha kunye nayo lonto.
Talking about that, I think at the end of the show we'll actually plug most of these numbers for teenagers who may need assistance all over, so that they are able to access those numbers, because what we're talking about, there are a lot of people who are sending messages. Abanye bayagowa ngokuzithetha, you are touching on real life issues.
And early identification of behavioral changes, you know, so before umbethe, because ngoku ungathi utshintshile because the appetite changes, because uphendula kakhulu, kakuzame understand the reason behind the behavior, the emotions behind the behavior.
Thank you so much, Dr. Machaya. We appreciate you as our viewers. Head to toe with Dr. T. We're out of time. Thank you.